First, former Islamic State bride Shamima Begum has lost her appeal over a Home Office decision to revoke her British citizenship. A judge ruled the decision by then Home Secretary Sajid Javid was not unlawful, despite her lawyers arguing that she was the victim of trafficking and sexual exploitation. It means she won't be able to return to the UK and will likely remain in the Syrian camp where she is currently living. Her lawyers say they will keep fighting. We're still joined in the studio by political commentator Tatan Spiller. What's your take, Tatan?
Well, first of all, this case was not a judgment about the morality of removing her citizenship. It was a judgment about whether the previous judgment was legal.
OK.
So it was a technical thing. Now...
It was an appeal, right? It was an appeal,
it was an appeal against the previous, but it wasn't a moral decision. Now, your very interesting guest, Peter, was just talking about how awful it was that children were raped and we stood by and did nothing. Now, Shamima Begum was raped and we are standing by and we've done nothing.
Do we know that?
Yes, because we know that she was taken to be a bride and she was underage, and part of the point was that she would have sex with the people who she was going to be married to. I've taught in London schools. I've taught many Begum young girls. Yeah. And I know how difficult it can be to escape some of that indoctrination, and what a hard life she's had. And I think the British thing to do would be to look after our own people.
But she made her own decision. She went out.
She was a child.
Well,
children make their own decisions all the time, and we don't hold them to it.
But she married into a death cult, you know, a terrorist death cult. And a lot of people don't think she should ever come back, and I happen to be one of them. And I don't think she will ever come back.
I don't think she'd ever come back.
I bridge the gap between the two of you, actually.
Oh,
believe it or not, I actually
you're not on my side.
I'm afraid not.
You're fired.
I'm a fence sitter on this one. No, I'm a fence sitter because I actually understand fully your argument, because I often think to myself, you know, she was young. She was 15 when she went out there. Now, if we're going to look at like you said, the victims of the grooming gangs, so around the same age, I think a lot of the things that the police forces did with them said, well, they're just naughty teenagers. They've made their minds to go off with these guys, and then it's all got out of hand. And so the same judgment would therefore apply, one would say, to Shamima Begum. But at the same time, the difference, I think, with this situation is she went to join a radical cult and for a long time still continued to espouse some of their values until a point in time when she no longer did. And it's whether she therefore not just presents a harm, because she in herself I don't think could be particularly harmful, but also a bit of a figurehead potentially. But then even if that's the case, I kind of think, why wouldn't we bring her home and drill her for information about who she knows and all the rest of it, and hold her accountable under our legal system?
Also, another thing about this, Tan and Alex, is this is her story. You're quoting her story. A lot of people think she's a liar.
Well, I think that, again, we need to go back to the fact she's a child, and we know child trafficking happens from this country. The school I taught at... But
that wasn't child trafficking. They went out themselves, the three girls.
Well, they were taken by an adult.
No, they went themselves. They were on their own.
They were facilitated, at least.
But they weren't trafficked. They were on their own when they went out there.
I haven't seen those films,
well,
so I'll take your word for
there they are. There they are, the three of them. That's not being trafficked.
Oh, but that's a still. No, we don't know what else is going on with that. But I will take your word that they went out there on their own because they were brainwashed, because that's what happens. I taught in a school that Jihadi John went to, right? I've seen people who are trying to be radicalised, and we worked as hard as we could. Yeah. To stop that.
You bring up a very interesting point here, because this ties in, I think, a lot of the time to children on social media. And if we're going to talk about young people being radicalised and taking certain positions which much later they might not want to, it is often an argument made against children who then decide they want to change their gender, and whether or not that should actually be looked at as well. You know, probably don't do that. Don't put them on hormone blockers, because they might be being groomed or radicalised by posts on social media. It's a very difficult, you know, when is a child no longer a child?
Well, I think that is at the heart of the matter. There's this sort of ludicrous, arbitrary moment where they reach their 16th birthday and somehow they're massively different to the day before when they were 15 years and 364 days.
Do you want to...
So there you go.